TIA establishes a task force to fight freight fraud. That and more coming up. The road to building and operating a successful trucking company can be a frustrating one. Every aspect of it is important. So why would you factor with a company that treats you and your business like a number? Operify is your business partner with back office solutions so you can focus on your next load. As this video states, the TIA is establishing a task force to fight freight fraud. I'm going to read an article kind of outlining all of that for you. And I may get into a little bit of a rant, not necessarily on topic, but in regards to this and my rant, if I decide to go into it afterwards. I'd like to get your guys' feedback on it. Okay. So in response to the rise in fraudulent activities within the transportation sector in recent years, brokerage group trade Transportation Intermediaries Association, or the TIA, has announced the establishment of the TIA Fraud Task Force. The task force is comprised of industry executives within the third-party logistics industry and technology companies that are focused on tech-driven solutions to combat fraud. The TIA is excited to unveil our internal fraud task force, which will examine the latest marketplace trends, develop strategies to address fraud internally within brokerage operations, and work on legislative and regulatory solutions in the short, medium, and long term. We hear from our members on a daily basis about rampant fraudulent activity within the industry. To address the issue of fraud in freight transactions, the TIA has collaborated with carrier organizations to elevate the matter on Capitol Hill and has engaged with the FMCSA on this. To that end, Senator Mike Braun from Indiana and Representative Mike Bost, if I'm saying that correctly, recently sent a letter to the FMCSA Administrator Rob Hutchinson and the Department of Transportation Inspector General's office, imploring the agency to establish a task force to oversee this issue of fraud and address the thousands of complaints currently lodged with the federal agency. The TIA added that it has disseminated industry best practices and the up-to-date information to assist its broker members in combating fraud. TIA's task force will convene regularly to fulfill its mission and goals, which include reducing fraudulent activities in the marketplace and actively engaging the FMCSA to address these concerns. At present, the agency's response has been minimal, necessitating urgent action, TIA added. Okay. That being said, I'd like to get your guys' feedback on this. Okay. I have been saying for years, and I'm sure that some of you other veterans in the industry would agree with me, us being close to $1 trillion a year industry, it seems like we're 10 years behind when it comes to technology. And when we look at things, I don't know, it seems like since COVID, this has become more and more of an issue. And I mean, I can give you example after example after example, people reaching out to me saying, Tim, I've got this situation. I've got a carrier that I've been working with regularly. Their insurance expired, but there was nothing that showed up on the FMCSA website unless they really clicked and dug into it. And even then, it only showed pending. But this carrier took the load, picked up the load 5 days after their insurance officially expired. Now, why is this not being updated, right? And it wasn't showing up on RMIS or anything else. So unless they called the insurance company directly, you're never going to know, right? how about the carrier who had been around for a few years? They had good reviews and everything. Somewhere along the lines, and I don't know why or if this was a common practice and it just didn't get caught, but they turned around, gave it to another broker, which I'm assuming, I don't know, there was some sort of friendship, relationship there, whatever. And they accepted a load. I believe it was for $1,100. And I probably talked about this before, but this is still fairly recent. Gave it to this other broker. They put the load out there. They booked it for $1,700. The load got picked up and delivered by carrier B, right? And weren't getting paid. So this is really becoming a very, and again, these are just a couple of issues, examples of issues that I've heard about, and it needs to stop. With that, I think that in large part, if you are not a residing citizen of this country, you should not be allowed to conduct business as a broker, carrier, or independent dispatcher in this country, right? And agree with me, disagree with me, you guys. Again, I would love to get your feedback on this. I don't think it's right that individuals in other countries, they set up they buy an office or rent an office for a few $100s a month or whatever. There's a desk, a phone, and a little chair, but there's never anybody there. It's just a PO box or a mailing address, kind of a thing. But they live in, I don't know, Timbuktu or in India or wherever, right? It doesn't matter. They should not be allowed to do this. We've seen this in past where I believe, what was it, that driver that ran off the off ramp. My memory fails me at the moment exactly where this happened, but the carrier was in the owner of the carrier company was in, I believe, Florida, and then fled to Cuba because that's where he resided, right? He was just in Florida, I believe, unless I've got my details mixed up, and you guys feel free to correct me on this. So there was no recourse. There was no way to go back on that. And that driver, who barely spoke English, didn't fully understand anything, was the one that was kind of hung out to dry. And this happened a couple of years ago. I'm sure you guys remember it. And again, if my details are foggy, feel free to correct me on this. And feel free to give me your opinion on whether you think it's fair to let individuals operate in the U.S. that don't live here. Now, I'm not talking about carriers that are based out of Canada that run, into the U.S. and back, or vice versa. I'm talking about, I'm a carrier. I live in BFE, wherever, but I've got my motor carrier authority and everything, and I operate inside the U.S., right? Or I've got a brokerage, but I don't live in the U.S. I have no intents on being in the U.S. And then they just double broker. And then their cousin, sister's brother, whatever, they start up and operate and do the same thing. Well, what ends up happening? Carriers suffer, brokers suffer, shippers suffer. Everybody suffers except them, because they collect all those payments and they have no intentions on paying the carrier. It's not right, it's not fair, and it should be outlawed. The federal government has failed you, it's failed me, and anybody else who operates and does things morally and justifiably in this country. There is no way. In fact, going back to my example on that carrier whose insurance had expired, why don't they have, we can implement, we have all this technology and things like this, the government does. Oh, I apologize, I didn't shut my volume off. Why is it that insurance companies can't automatically update through the FMCSA that a carrier's insurance has expired, like that day? Now, I understand about the whole grace period thing, but if it's expired, that should show up, boom, page 1. right? Or if a broker's surety bond is being filed on, right? Why is that not just right there? Why are we not educating carriers on how to file on a broker's bond when this type of thing happens? Right? And if a broker is operating outside the US and they get their bond here and everything, who's the bond company going to go after? Nobody. Nobody. So the bond company suffers, the carrier suffers, the shippers, just like I said. I don't mean to get upset, but when I people, I hear this stuff every day. Every day. I get emails, phone calls, Facebook messages. Every day I've got somebody reaching out to me, talking to me about this. And we're all beating our heads against the wall. So why? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want, in my personal opinion, I don't want big government to step in with everything. But when it comes to the technology part of it, why are we not having this stuff updated to the minute? Right? We can put tracking on a truck. We can put an ELD on a truck. Right or wrong? You guys agree with me or no? I'd love to get your feedback on this because I don't know. I don't mean to get upset, but it ruffles my feathers that this kind of thing has just been allowed to happen, right? And thank God the TIA is finally stepping in to do something. Now, is it going to be enough? Time will tell, right? Will it have any kind of a severe impact on double brokering and fraudulent activities? We'll see. We'll see. What are your guys' thoughts and opinions on this? Anything? Just cracking a smile, listen to me rant? Maybe. But seriously, I mean, everybody's experienced it at one point in time or another. If you've been in this industry for any length of time, you've either narrowly avoided it or you've experienced it, right? And this goes back to what I keep preaching about, doing our due diligence, right? With everything. If you're a broker, doing everything you can to check out a carrier, and then I get it. I see, carriers going, oh, well, this broker won't give me a load because I haven't done this or I haven't done that. I get that, but it's a safety measure, right? And it seems unfair, but this is the world we live in now. Okay, let me put this up here. It's just automation. It's quite easy to set up. Some factory companies have set up a system that automatically stops payments once insurance is invalidated. Right. I get that, but it not everybody factors, right? So for those brokers and carriers that don't factor, I mean, this is only a solution to part of the problem, right? But there again, this is where I was kind of getting into. We need to do our due diligence, verify phone numbers. If you get some goofy email address that they want you to send a rate confirmation to or something, like there's a lot of like manual checks that need to be done, whether you're a broker or a carrier. That I think, because okay, not to sound goofy, but if you've seen that Tom Hanks movie, what was that? Castaway, right? He worked for FedEx. He said that we live and die by the clock. Well, like I said, if I get time allows, I always try to talk to carriers, right? I try to talk to other brokers and everything on a regular basis, kind of get your guys' feedback. what kind of issues, what barriers are you facing. We kind of talk about what's going on in the industry, things like this, right? But so many times we just get in such a rush to do everything that we just sign our lives away, or we just, oh, I got to hurry up and book this load, or I got to hurry up and take that load. Volumes are down. I got to take this load. All the agreements are the same, right? Well, no, they're not all the same. If you're a carrier and you're just blanket signing broker carrier setup agreements without reading it, or at least scanning it, you can't cry about it afterwards, right? And I understand time is of the essence. And again, this is kind of the world that we live in. So again, why do we not have the technology in place for everyone, right, to combat these issues? It's absurd to me. So many other industries are so much further ahead in technology and everything and we're so far behind. Why? As an almost $1 trillion a year industry, why are we so far behind? We're like, not to take this however you want, but I mean, we're kind of like America's redheaded stepchild. We're just sort of like in the background that nobody cares about, right? Whether you're a driver, a broker, an agent, fleet owner, just get it there. Just get it done. Which brings me to another thing. Problematic shippers. Okay? I have a customer. Actually, I have a couple of customers, but I'm going to use this one as an example because they're both pretty similar. They always have these. As long as I've been working with them and tried to educate them, they should understand things a lot better than what they do, right? And so they asked me to quote a load or book a load with them. They sent over the details, but they're very vague, right? And there's a long wait to get pickup numbers, things like this. I've got carriers waiting. I'm just about done with them. I keep saying this and I keep saying this, and I should have been done with them a long time ago. Or, this load needs to be picked up at 2:00, and then at 1:30, 1:45, all of a sudden, oh no, we don't want them over there. We send them to this other address. Really? Well, why don't I have the correct pickup address ahead of time? Right? Or we need to change the time. Really? Because I said he could be there by 2. Well, we need him there at 1 at the latest. Otherwise, he won't be able to pick up. Really? I'm about over it with them. I don't know. Do you guys have any problematic customers that you deal with that are in any way, shape, or form? And they blow up my phone. They soak up my time. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm venting today. It's Friday. Okay? I'm getting this kind of all out there before the weekend. But let's try to flip this around to a positive note. Anybody out there that's currently watching, and I see that there's some of you on there, anybody got a new customer this week or last week since I last asked? Or do you have a follow-up? Did you get a follow-up phone call, anything like that with a prospect? You're getting close to sealing the deal. Are you a carrier out there building new relationships with direct shippers or with a good broker? This whole industry gets a lot easier if you network. If for you new people that are out there, networking is going to be probably one of your utmost priorities, aside from the constant prospecting. If you're going to be successful, you have to network, right? And we talk about this in other videos, and you can, if you're on YouTube, you can go back and look that up. We got the whole freight sales section in there. You can go back and watch some of those. Kind of goes through the whole prospecting process, getting new customers, dealing with cold calling, all of that, right? We talk about all of that in previous videos. I probably need to do another one sometime soon. And if you guys need anything, like I said, whether you're on Facebook, I believe the links are up above. If you're on YouTube, the links for everything are down below. If you need to book a Zoom meeting with me or anything like that. If you're a carrier watching this right now, you need the accessorial agreement, the truckersresource.com, the website address is on there. It's a free download. Like I said, I believe I mentioned that in previous 2 videos. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? I got tied up with 2 Illinois-based carriers, meaning I will be looking for shippers from that area as well. Any advice for that area? What niche is the most favorable in volume, not earning? Good question. It's sort of a shotgun question, right? So it's a little hard for me to, not that I can't answer it, but I'm assuming that you're fairly new, just based on the question. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? This is why we ask questions. And I'm very glad that you asked that, because a lot of times with some of the backlash that new brokers and carriers get on social media, you kind of get hesitant to ask questions. So I'm really glad that you asked that. Thank you so much. Okay, you may or may not have already heard, riches are in niches. So focus on like a specific equipment type. Now, I don't know if these carriers that you're getting, you're establishing relationships with are dry van, flatbed, refrigerated. It does seem like open deck freight, like flatbed, step deck, all of that, seems to kind of be, the demand for that seems to be a little bit on the rise right now. So if you are pursuing something that's a little bit more in demand, I would pursue shippers that are shipping stuff that go on open deck. It might be forklifts, it might be steel, whatever. And then from that, right, like say your focus is on steel, well, maybe narrow that down even further. Look for a micro niche, right, that's not being serviced. And I understand the whole volume thing, but one thing that I'm noticing from a lot of volume shippers, not all of them, but predominantly, and maybe this is just my experience, but it seems like a lot of the volume shippers are really still trying to take advantage of the market. They're the cheapest paying ones, which means your margins are going to be smaller, and the rate that you're going to be able to pay that carrier is smaller. So everybody's kind of suffering working with those volume shippers. This is why I've always suggested that everybody try to find small to medium sized shippers, right? They still might be shipping out a few loads every day. They just might not have 50 or 100 loads every day, right? But they typically are able to, have a little bit of wiggle room because they don't have the vast broker and carrier network that some of the volume shippers do. right? And the volume shippers leverage that to keep their rates down. So yeah, if whatever commodities, and there again, commodities, follow your commodities. So like, think about the difference between the value of a load of tinfoil versus the value of a load of gold, right? Now, I'm not saying you're going to go out and ship gold bullion, but you hopefully understand what I'm trying to say there. You know, maybe raw material plastic versus plastic gear parts or something, or plastic plumbing pipe or whatever. That final product is probably going to, those loads, because it's a higher value now that it's been turned into something, right? And then don't forget that if you're getting shipments from, say, your customer, and you're shipping regular or fairly regular to, well, okay, let's go back to my example of the raw material plastics. Let's say that you have raw plastic material, the little pellets that they inject or blow mold into, I don't know, let's say tackle boxes, right? If you like to fish like I do. That's being shipped to, say, Plano or Flambeau or whoever, to be, or maybe they outsource it. I don't know. It's something I've never looked into, but I probably should, because I do like some of their products. But they're shipping that raw material to be turned into tackle boxes, and then from there they're shipping it off to places like Dunham's, Walmart, Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop, all of those kind of places, right? So when you ship that raw material to Flambeau or Plano, call them and say, hey, I'm sending trucks in regularly with that raw material. Is there any way that we can get reloads from you? Right? Because obviously that's not the end user. And then from there, they'll say, yeah, well, if you've already got the trucks here, let's do it. We'll just unload them and reload them. And then that helps out your carrier as well. Right? Because now you just got them a reload, and the load might pay a better rate per mile now that you've got a finished product leaving the manufacturer going to a DC. And I hope that it was a little long-winded, but I hope that answered your question, right? Because that your question has been asked by so many since probably the beginning of time with freight. That's the best way I can think of to answer it for you. And again, if I did not answer, okay, awesome. I was going to say, if you have any other questions, or if I didn't answer your question, feel free to email me, freightmasterresources@gmail.com. I always answer everybody's emails, and I try to answer them as quickly as possible. Now, if you shoot me an email at like 1 a.m. Eastern time, you might have to wait till I get up in the morning at 0600 to answer that for you, but I promise I will answer, and I'll get back to you, right? And again, like I said, we've got all the resources. If you guys are needing DAT, you're 30 days free. We've got links for all of that down below. TMS, factoring, all of that stuff. All of these companies have been vetted by me. I would never send you guys to a company that I didn't believe in or use. So if they've been great with me, and great reviews, and I've gotten good feedback from you guys on them, then I continue to work with them. So that's why, just using OfferFi as an example, their team's been great. They always get back, text back, email back, call back. They're the bomb. So, but yeah, so I guess to kind of wrap up a little bit, unless anybody else has any other questions, I really hope that this TIA task force to combat freight fraud really has a significant impact in combating that, because, like I said, it's it's costing you and I and the rest of the world a bunch of money. Doggone it. I thought I turned that down. I apologize. But yeah, I really hope that. Oh yeah, I thought I recognized your name. Yeah. By all means, and I will do another freight shipper list giveaway soon. I just don't know when, but I'll have another one for you guys. I'll dig all that up. Don't forget, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, get your LinkedIn profile. And I talk about that in previous videos and stuff. If you're out there prospecting and hitting it hard, right? You can't make 15 calls a day and expect to be successful. We really have to get out there and prospect. And again, network. Okay. So I hope you guys have a fabulous day. I hope you guys are having good, big plans for this weekend. I think I'm probably going to try to go out and do some fishing before I lose my mind. Right? Maybe I already have, but that's enough ranting for me today. I got that off. I shook that off. But that being said, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down now. And as always, be kind to one another. Bye-bye now.